Ugh, okay. Let's talk about the phone thing because trust me, this is where the real toxic relationship stories start getting juicy. My ex and I were together for 2 years, and listen, that phone was basically another limb he couldn't live without. He'd freak out, and I mean freak out, if I even reached for it to check the time. But guess what? My phone? Total open book for him. He had zero issues with access, which, looking back, is such a massive red flag. He treated that phone like it held the nuclear codes, hauling it with him everywhere he went. It's such a subtle little mind game, you know? He was constantly setting this boundary, making me feel like I was the crazy one for wanting normal transparency in a long-term relationship story song. We thought about it a bunch, especially toward the end of last year. I thought he was finally loosening up a little bit, maybe realizing he was being paranoid, but nope. It was just a temporary truce because that deep down feeling that he was hiding something huge, that was already planted in my gut and it was growing. This rigid secrecy forced me into the role I swore I'd never take, the detective. I mean, when someone guards their secrets that intensely, they practically force you to snoop just to keep your sanity. It was like I had to choose between respecting his privacy and respecting my own peace of mind. And let me tell you, that internal battle is exhausting. So what happened the very first time I actually got my hands on that phone? Oh, buddy, buckle up. So this is the part where things get messy, like real messy. Early on in our 2-year relationship stories, long before we moved in, I finally got my hands on that sacred phone while he was distracted. I'm not proud of it, but hey, my gut was screaming, and what did I find? The history was splashed with trans pornography, specifically videos of trans women. I was floored. Immediately, I tried to logic my way out of it, telling myself, it's just curiosity, or maybe some dumb friends handed it to him as a joke. I made this secret, stupid little bargain with myself to keep quiet, tucking that weird discovery deep down and pretending it didn't exist. But oh man, that wasn't all. While I was in there, I also saw old photos and messages with ex-girlfriends. Nothing necessarily cheating level, but stuff that just felt off, like he was still lingering in the past. It was like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain, seeing all these little red flags popping up, but deciding I loved him and our potential future too much to actually call him out. You always read about people in toxic relationship stories who ignore the signs, and I realized, damn, I was doing the exact same thing right then and there. I was banking on the idea that maybe he just had a weird curiosity phase. You know, like maybe he's just a secure guy who appreciates beauty in all forms. I kept telling myself, if it was a one-time thing, it doesn't matter. But that little voice in my head, the one that remembered how fiercely he guarded his phone, kept whispering, you know that's not the whole story. I managed to push the trans porn thing back for months, maybe a year, but the constant feeling of something hidden became this heavy, invisible wall between us. And as the relationship progressed and we moved in together, that wall started making us both act weird.
I sat there, staring at the screen, and the feeling of being a leak show just washed over me. The constant exhaustion made sudden, horrible sense. He was too tired for me because he was spending all his energy secretly feeding this appetite. This wasn't some one-off curiosity. This was what excited him. I knew right then I couldn't keep quiet about this huge, unspoken secret anymore. The silence that had kept our toxic relationship stories going for so long had to break. I knew I had to talk to him, no matter how explosive the conversation might be. The next day, I didn't even try to be subtle. I told him straight up, we need to talk. I was stone cold, and he knew instantly something huge was coming. I started with the soft approach, asking if he truly loved me and if he was still attracted to me. Of course, he hit me with the classic line, "Yes, you are the woman of my life," which just made my stomach turn knowing what I saw. Then I dropped the bomb and asked if he had any doubts about his sexuality. He's 31, for crying out loud. At first, it was the same old denial, but when I finally laid it out, the real question, the one that exposed his biggest secret, why are you only watching trans pornography? He absolutely blew up. He went nuclear, but not about the porn. He went on a tirade about how I had no right to look at his phone. It was a classic deflection tactic, trying to turn one of the saddest toxic relationship stories into an argument about my lack of privacy respect. I mean, come on, you're caught red-handed and you want to argue about manners? The fighting was insane, but that explosion was the admission I needed. When he finally calmed down, he started giving me this convoluted, confusing answer. He admitted he found the aesthetic attractive, like the stomach and the faces, but claimed the actual organ did not attract him, and he'd skipped the video when the act started. Seriously? Watching hours of that content and skipping the main event? In the world of complex relationship stories long, that felt like the biggest, lamest excuse ever manufactured. But then came a crucial piece of his personal history. He confessed he had communicated with a trans woman before me and even planned to meet her, but totally chickened out at the last minute. He didn't have the courage. See? This wasn't just online curiosity, this was real-life exploration that he repressed. He admitted that for a long time, he questioned his sexuality, even thinking he was bi. And then, get this, asked me if I considered him bi for it, and if I did, then he was. What kind of answer is that? It was a desperate attempt to put a convenient label on a huge internal crisis. And the plot thickened with the actual details of his past. After his little meltdown about my snooping, the dam finally broke, and the confusing truths came pouring out. He started with the absolute contradiction. He loves the aesthetic, he finds the actresses beautiful, even down to the abs, but swore up and down that the organ itself did not attract him, and he'd skip the video when the act started. Seriously? Watching hours of that content and skipping the main event? In the world of complex relationship stories long, that felt like the biggest, lamest excuse ever manufactured. But then came a crucial piece of his personal history. He confessed he had communicated with a trans woman before me and even planned to meet her, but totally chickened out at the last minute. He didn't have the courage. See? This wasn't just online curiosity, this was a real-life exploration that he repressed. He admitted that for a long time, he questioned his sexuality, even thinking he was bi. And then, what kind of answer is that? It was a desperate attempt to put a convenient label on a huge internal crisis. And the plot thickened with the actual details of his past. After his little meltdown about my snooping, the dam finally broke, and the confusing truths came pouring out. He started with the absolute contradiction. He loves the aesthetic, he finds the actresses beautiful, even down to the abs, but swore up and down that the organ itself did not attract him, and he'd skip the video when the act started. Seriously, watching hours of that content and skipping the main event? In the world of complex relationship stories, That felt like the biggest lingness excuse ever manufactured. But then came a crucial piece of his personal history. He confessed he had communicated with a trans woman before me and even planned to meet her, but totally chickened out at the last minute. He didn't have the courage. See? This wasn't just online curiosity, this was real-life exploration that he repressed. He admitted that for a long time, he questioned his sexuality, even thinking he was bi. And then what kind of answer is that? That was a desperate attempt to put a convenient label on a huge internal crisis. And his next step was truly desperate. The whole discussion, the phone, the porn, the confusion over his identity was terrifying for him, clearly, because his next move was just insane. He was so desperate to stop me from ending things that he actually messaged my mother, begging her for help. Can you believe it? He was trying to rope in my family to control my decision, playing the victim, insisting I was wrong, and swearing up and down that he wasn't gay. This wasn't a private, loving attempt to save our relationship stories. This was a desperate public performance designed to validate his narrative and pressure me into staying. This move exposed something non-obvious and truly dark about our dynamic, his absolute fear of external judgment. He wasn't just worried about our relationship, he was terrified of what other people would think, especially since his parents were already so deeply involved in our lives. By messaging my mom, he was trying to create an echo chamber that supported his claim, "I'm not gay, she's overreacting, tell her to stop this." Honestly, that desperation sealed the deal for me. It wasn't about love anymore. It was about him trying to maintain his comfortable, convenient status quo. The spoiled, coddled lifestyle he had at his parents' house. That lack of personal accountability, pushing his emotional crisis onto me and then onto my mother, was the ultimate red flag, revealing the true core of the toxic relationship stories we were trapped in, and it had everything to do with his home life. Look, I gotta be real with you, this whole trans porn discovery, while devastating, wasn't the only reason I walked away. It was the straw that broke the camel's back in what was already becoming one of the most stressful toxic relationship stories imaginable. Our relationship was already sinking because of the sheer misery of living in his parents' house. Seriously, it was a nightmare. His mother loved to humiliate me, and he, the precious spoiled child, never did a damn thing to stop it. He was totally pampered. His parents wouldn't even let us cook a proper meal. Everything was served in a little container, like we were inmates. And the kicker, we were paying a ton of money to live there. But he absolutely refused to leave. It was convenient for him. He had zero motivation to grow up or defend me. So when I found the porn, it just stacked on to all this other garbage. The lack of support, the humiliation, the arrested development. It was proof that he prioritized his own comfort and secrets over my happiness and our actual relationship stories. The exhaustion wasn't just his from work. It was mine from fighting for a relationship where I was constantly being belittled and living like a prisoner. He was the perpetual spoiled kid, and I finally realized I wasn't his partner. I was just another piece of the furniture in his comfortable parent-controlled life. So yeah, the sexual confusion was a huge factor. But the true toxicity was the environment he refused to escape and the man he refused to become. And then came the final, most infuriating detail of the whole mess. Okay, deep breath. Let's get to the most painful, undeniable truth that made me finally draw the line. He swore the visual attraction stopped before the act, claiming he found the physical organ unattractive. But hell no. I respected my boundaries enough to watch multiple videos after our fight. And let me tell you, many of the trans actresses still had a penis. So when he constantly watched that content, he was definitely getting off on seeing the penis too. Plain and simple. All the convoluted explanations about aesthetics and skipping the main part, total BS. He was hiding his true desires, which is a classic feature in sad toxic relationship stories. This realization that he was attracted to a part of the anatomy he claimed to reject was the final devastating piece of the puzzle. It confirmed that he was performing for himself as much as he was performing for me and for his homophobic environment. And his immediate, desperate reaction proved exactly who he was worried about. He begged me not to tell anyone, especially his parents, who already interfered in everything, even our intimacy. The truth is, he didn't want the secret out because he knew his cushy life, his comfort, and the whole charade of our relationship stories long would collapse. The secret wasn't about protecting me, it was about protecting his convenience. He still tells me he loves me and wants to get back together, but nope, I can't do it. The betrayal of the secret stacked on top of all that home toxicity is too much. I've walked away, but I still need to know. Am I crazy for ending things over a secret that was so clearly screaming his deepest truth?